Mel Brooks has spent nearly a century watching films, long before he ever picked up a camera, long before anyone knew his name. He sat in darkened theaters just like the rest of us, watching, absorbing, dreaming. And after all those decades of making audiences laugh, winning awards, and rubbing shoulders with legends, he keeps returning to the same handful of films. Not because critics told him to, not because they're fashionable, because every single viewing reveals something he missed before. People assume a comedy director's all-time favorites must be wall-to-wall laughs. They're usually wrong. Starting at number 5, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Humphrey Bogart delivers one of the bravest screen performances Brooks has ever witnessed. Not because the character is charming or heroic, but because Bogart lets you watch a decent man slowly come apart. Hollywood loves a hero. This film doesn't. It asks something far more unsettling. What happens when ordinary people finally get everything they wanted, and it destroys them? Brooks walked out of that theater understanding that tension doesn't need a gunfight. Sometimes the most gripping battle happens entirely inside someone's head. Number 4, City Lights. Brooks is the first to admit that his greatest comedy inspiration probably isn't who people expect. Charlie Chaplin wasn't just chasing the next joke. He was chasing the next emotion. As a young man, Brooks laughed all the way through it. But with age, it was the kindness that lingered. The tramp had no money, no power, no conventional good looks, and yet he kept choosing compassion. Brooks carried that lesson into every ridiculous character he ever created. Audiences have to care first. If they care, the laughter hits harder. And that ending, no speeches, no swelling orchestra, just two faces and one quiet moment. Brooks has seen it dozens of times and says it still gets him every time. Number 3, Casablanca. On paper, it had no business being a masterpiece. The script kept changing mid-production. Nobody quite knew what they had. And yet, Bogart's Rick doesn't explain himself. You piece him together scene by scene. Ingrid Bergman needed no dramatic gestures. A single glance said everything. But what places Casablanca on this list, Brooks says, is the dialogue. Every exchange sounds completely unscripted, yet nearly every line became part of cinema history. That, he'll tell you, is the hardest trick in writing. Words that sound like nobody wrote them at all. Number 2, Bicycle Thieves. People are sometimes surprised to see an Italian neo-realist film this high. No Hollywood glamour, no famous faces, no spectacle whatsoever. Just a father and his young son trying to survive. Brooks says the first time he watched it, he forgot he was watching a movie. That's nearly impossible to pull off. The lesson it gave him was the opposite of everything Hollywood preaches. Sometimes the smallest story becomes the most universal, because everyone knows what it feels like to be on the edge of losing something irreplaceable. And number 1, Citizen Kane. Brooks admits he didn't fully grasp it the first time. But after decades behind a camera himself, he watched it again. And it felt like an entirely different film. That's what a true masterpiece does. It grows with you. Beyond the legendary cinematography and groundbreaking structure, what stays with Brooks is the loneliness at its core. A man who acquires everything and still can't fill the emptiness. Fame, power, influence, none of it replaces the people you love. Nearly 100 years of watching movies, and these 5 never stop teaching him something new. If you haven't seen one of them, now's the time. If you have, watch it again. You might find a completely different film waiting for you. If this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from.